Today I am going to share a third quarter Q&A and let's find out how my reading life is going so far this year. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life and welcome to a third quarter reading wrap-up Q&A video. I did a first quarter Q&A video earlier this year. I was tagged to do that and the questions were so much fun that I thought it would be great to make this a regular occurring video on my channel and to just kind of wrap things up every quarter. I did do the mid-year freakout tag, which I did in lieu of answering these quarterly questions, but now that it's third quarter, I am going to answer them once again. I made a few modifications to the questions because they weren't all applicable to the third quarter of the year. So if you're another booktuber and you'd like to answer these questions, I will have them all listed in the description box below. But let's get straight into the questions today. The first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? And I'm using so far this year as of the end of September, which would be the end of the third quarter of 2024. And as of September 30th, I had read, I can't believe this, I had read 146 books. This year is going to be the year that I have read more books than any other year in my life. Full stop. I'm not sure what happened. Actually, that's not true. I am sure what happened. Definitely middle grade March. I read so many books during middle grade March. It was kind of ridiculous. And I think I was just in the mood for middle grade reads, and so I just was flying through them, and that really added to the numbers for my reading totals this year. And middle grade books, I mean, they tend to be quite a bit shorter and they tend to be quite easy to read. So that definitely played a big part in this number being so high this year. Also, not having a reading slump over the summer months, that really helped as well. So we'll see if I can maybe replicate some of that next year, though I don't have any particular goals to read large number of books. I just read as much as feels good to me, and sometimes that's a lot and sometimes that's a little, and this year it was a lot. Question 2 is, what is your most recent 5-star or new favorite read? And the most recent 5-star, definitely going to be a new favorite of mine, has to be My Antonia by Willa Cather. I finished this at the end of September, and I believe I've already shared that I cannot believe this is my first time reading a Willa Cather book. It's definitely not going to be my last, and I enjoyed this so much. Willa Cather's writing is just so evocative, so beautiful. She brings the Midwestern plains of Nebraska to life, and it was just lovely. And it was actually really even more lovely to read it juxtaposed against the Little House on the Prairie series, which I've been reading this year, and just to kind of be immersed more deeply in that world. And that just really enhanced my reading of this because I felt like I was already bringing something to the table because I was reading those books and was kind of immersed in prairie life already this year. It's funny how themes take over in your reading life sometimes. Do you ever find that happens, that you read something about a particular topic and then that topic just keeps coming up in your reading life, or subject matter or person or whatever it might be? I just love these sort of serendipity that happens sometimes in reading. So this was definitely one of them. Absolutely loved it. Can't recommend it enough. And if you haven't read it, definitely give it a go. And then the next question is, what is a 1-star least favorite DNF from the third quarter? I actually have 2 books that qualify as this. The first one, I don't believe I gave it 1 star. I think I gave it maybe 2 stars, but it really just didn't work for me. And that was actually a middle grade graphic novel. That is Cece's Journal by John Chamberlain and Aurelie Neret. Hope I'm saying that correctly. I read this and it just didn't resonate with me. I didn't like how much our main character Cece was lying to her mother, to her friends. The friendship between the 3 girls in the story just didn't ring authentic to me. There was just something about it that was really lacking. And yes, it wasn't the greatest. And then the second book, and this one I did DNF, and I'm so sad about it. I talked about this already in my September wrap-up video, but The Printed Letter Bookshop by Catherine Ray. I have read Catherine Ray before and enjoyed her. She has a few books. She has like the Bronte plot, and there's another one that's like a retelling of Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. I've read that one and enjoyed it. Anyway, she's got a few different based on sort of classic books like the Brontes, Jane Austen, etc. And this one, I gave it a little over 50 pages, and I think I mentioned this already in my wrap-up video, but I don't like books where there's a construct set in place and really its only purpose is to move the plot along. And there was a construct set up at the beginning of this book whereby the main character is estranged from her aunt. I believe her aunt is the one who owns the bookshop and has just recently passed away. And the reason for the estrangement seems very forced. At least to me, it felt very forced. And when I can't buy in from the get-go, I have a really hard time continuing on with the story because it just doesn't seem believable to me. I'm unable, like in the theater, you say you suspend your disbelief, right? You suspend your disbelief that you're sitting in a theater and you're watching people pretending to put on a show. You immerse yourself in whatever the world is of that show that you're watching, and you suspend all disbelief that this couldn't possibly be happening and isn't real, and that door doesn't actually go anywhere, and like all of that. And I find sometimes with books, if that plot construct doesn't hold together well, that I'm unable to suspend my disbelief. And that was the case with this book, and it makes me sad because I'm definitely willing to give Catherine Ray another shot because I do think there might be books of hers still out there that I will enjoy, but this one just didn't do it for me. The next question is, what genres did you read the most of in the third quarter? Well, I read the most of what I mostly read the most of. Mysteries, for sure. I think that was the #1 genre that I read in the third quarter. I also read just quite a lot of general fiction, particularly fiction written by women. Classics. I did read quite a few classics in the third quarter. And I did read a few memoirs. And I do love memoirs, especially on audio. That's just such a sweet spot when it is read by the author and you're just hearing their voice tell their story. I really love that. And those were my most read genres. The next question is, name a book you want to read this year but still haven't. This book. This book I'm about to hold up, you guys. I want to read this book so badly. I actually started it last year. I think it was last year. And then life just got in the way and I set the book aside because I just couldn't concentrate at that moment. It wasn't the book, it was totally me. And I was like, I'm gonna pick this up next year, and I still haven't done it. And I decided, I swapped it out for another book that was on my TBR 24 and 24 challenge because I just wasn't feeling in the mood for that other book right now and possibly for the rest of the year. But this one I really want to read. Enough with the teasing, here's the book. And that is The Diary of a Provincial Lady by E.M. Delafield. And this is actually the collected, I think it is, let me look here. I believe it is 4. So this is 4 of the Diary of a Provincial Lady books, all in one. So it's The Diary of a Provincial Lady, The Provincial Lady Goes Further, The Provincial Lady in America, and The Provincial Lady in Wartime. And I just want to read this. I was enjoying it so much. I still have my bookmark in here from when I read it last year. This is one of my dad's bookmarks that he made. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, I got to page 90. So I haven't decided. I think I may just pick up at page 90 because I remember what was going on, I think, pretty much. So I may go back a few pages just to refresh where we are in the story exactly, and then just continue on from there. But it is my goal to read this book before the end of the year. You guys hold me to that, okay? This is the book. The next question is, what is a book that surprised you? And again, this is a book I read in the third quarter, a book that surprised me in the third quarter. And this book, I'm going to go with Gilgamesh by Joan London. Now, my mom gave me this book quite a number of years ago. She read it, she really enjoyed it, and then it just sat on my shelf as books sometimes do. And I said to myself, this is going to be the year that I read this, and it finally was. And it was so surprisingly thought-provoking. I actually was looking at my review on Goodreads, which I haven't even really written a review. All I wrote in there was, I have to sit with this one for a while before I share my thoughts on it. And I really need to go back and do that, because this was just such an interesting dive into a woman's life. This is set in Australia in 1937. We follow Edith. She lives with her mother and her sister Frances, like out in the Australian countryside. And then one afternoon, two men show up. One is her cousin Leopold, and then his Armenian friend Aram. And life just sort of changes from there. And you follow her relationship with her cousin and his friend, and then the book sort of moves forward a couple of years, and Edith now has a young son, and she has decided to leave Australia and go to Armenia. And we follow her journey there and what happens. And this is such an interesting book, and told just in a way that was unexpected to me and so intriguing. And I won't say it's funny, because it wasn't that I closed this book and absolutely just adored it, but I just couldn't stop thinking about it for the longest time. And every time I see it or think about it, or the title pops up to me, I'm right back there thinking about this book. And I think that's a true testament to the writing. And even if I didn't love it the way you love a favorite book, I will never forget this. And I highly recommend giving this a read. The setting is interesting. The characters are just well drawn. The relationships are really interesting. And yes, even if Edith isn't a 100% lovable character, I really did end up feeling for her, and following her journey was so interesting. So if that sounds good to you, I would definitely say give Gilgamesh a try. And this is a book I don't think I've ever heard anyone else talk about. So if you are looking for a little hidden gem, then give this one a go. The final two questions have to do with my reading goals for the year. And the first question is, what reading goals are you not succeeding at? And at first, I thought to myself, I don't know, I think I'm doing okay on my reading goals. I don't have that many reading goals, just because I tend to not follow them. If I set myself a lot of, I'm going to do this, this, or this. And then I was looking in my reading journal and I realized, oh yes, one of the things that I love to do every year is read along with the official Agatha Christie website. They do a challenge every year called Read Christie, insert year here. So this year it's Read Christie 2024. And I fully intended to read along. They are reading through the decades. So they started off reading her books from the 1920s and then moved to the 30s, then 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And yeah, I think I've read 2 Agatha Christie books this year, which is terrible. Most years I read, 6 to 12 Agatha Christie books, just depending on what's going on. I love Agatha Christie, and I've been enjoying working my way through all of her books and rereading a few here and there. And I really love her books on audio, so they're one of my go-tos when I don't know what to listen to on audio. I usually pick up an Agatha Christie. But this year, and I will say, I think I know the reason for that, and that is that I have been doing my Lord Peter Wimsey read through this year, and so that has been satisfying my need for that like classic crime fiction books that I normally get from Agatha Christie, and I'm getting those in the Lord Peter Wimsey books, so I haven't felt the need to like seek out Agatha Christie books to fulfill that need to read a mystery just about every month of the year, because I am. I do think for next year, one of my goals is going to be to finish reading the Agatha Christie novels that I have currently on my TBR shelf. And they're right up there. I think I've got maybe like 7 or 8 on my shelf that are her mystery novels written under the name Agatha Christie. I'm not going to count the Mary Westmacott books because I feel like those are kind of a different thing. And so I think next year I'm going to focus on finishing those. Maybe I will see if they tie into whatever the Read Christie 2025 challenge is, and get myself a little bit of an Agatha Christie fix. My goal is to focus just on the full-length novels. I have quite a few short story collections on my shelf, and certainly if I get to some of them, that would be fantastic, but I really just want to kind of chip away at those remaining novels that I have left to read because there aren't that many. I think I only have a dozen or so of her novels left to read, and that's kind of exciting, and I would kind of like to get through them all in the next couple of years, so this would get me a long way towards completing that. So that is my goal for 2025, I think, if I remember. And then the final question for this video is, what reading goals are you succeeding at? Well, I mentioned one of them already. I am reading through all of the Lord Peter Wimsey novels, not the short stories, but the novels. And I am going to be reading Gaudy Night this month, and then I will finish up next month with The Busman's Honeymoon. And then I will have read the entire Lord Peter Wimsey novels from start to finish. And that feels so satisfying because it wasn't a huge goal. It was just one every month from January to November, and then I was finished, and it's just been so lovely. And I will be doing a wrap-up video after I finish the final novel, and I'm going to rank all of the books in terms of the ones I enjoyed the most to the least, and talk a little bit about them and about that whole journey. So stay tuned for that. That'll probably be coming in December. And then another goal that I had this year, which I actually didn't set this up as a goal, it just sort of happened, and that is to read all of the Little House on the Prairie books that I had in my possession at the start of the year, which I believe were the first 5 books. I think I'm going to end up actually reading more than that because maybe there were 6. It matters not. And I think I have one more left to read from those. And then I have collected a couple of others, and I'm just going to keep reading them every month or so, just because I'm enjoying the series so much and I want to read the whole thing. And I can't believe I didn't read it as a child. I read Little House in the Big Woods, but then I never continued on, I don't think. I mean, I may have read 1 or 2 others, but I certainly didn't read the whole series. But it has just been such a joy. And then I think I'm going to go back and watch some of the TV series because that just sounds like a delightful way to wrap up having read the Little House books. And then my 2 biggest goals for the year, the first one was the TBR 24 in 24 challenge. And I think I'm doing okay. I think I've read 17 books, so I still have a few more to go. But my other goal was to read 50 books for my 50th year. This is my 50 and my 50th TBR challenge, and I believe I have read 44 or 45 books off of my TBR shelf. So my qualifications were the book had to be on my shelf prior to January 1st of this year. It didn't matter whether I finished the book or DNF'd it. I could count that towards my goal because the whole point was to get these books off of my TBR shelf, whether that was that they go onto my red shelf or that I pass them along to a little free library or sell them at half-price books or what have you. Either way, the goal was to just reduce the number of books that have been sitting on my shelf for so many years. And like I have mentioned in the past, I don't mind having a lot of books on my TBR shelves, but when they've been sitting there for years and years and years and I haven't read them, then I sort of start to feel like, why are they still there? I really need to pick these up and read these. So this has been a good goal for me this year. And I think I'm in the middle of a couple of books right now that qualify, and I certainly have more books that I will be reading through the end of the year that I have had since before January 1st of this year. I had originally put together a list of the 24 books I wanted to read for the TBR 24 in 24 challenge, but I have been swapping books out because some things just haven't worked for me. And so I may do that some more as we get closer to the end of the year if I'm struggling to finish my 24 books. And I am not beyond grabbing some holiday reads in December and crossing those off of my read list, because I have lots of holiday books that are still on my TBR shelf that I really want to get to. So if I can add them to either my 50 and my 50th TBR challenge or my TBR 24 and 24 challenge, either way, it's all a win for me. So I think I'm doing pretty okay with my goals. I'm feeling really satisfied with my reading life this year. It has really, honestly, been such a wonderful reading year. Part of that is all of you. Starting this booktube channel has just been such a joy to me, and it's just enhanced my reading life so much. So thank you all for that. And yes, that is my third quarter reading wrap up. Obviously, I won't do a fourth quarter reading wrap up because I'm just going to do a full year in review. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet, whether it's going to be a few different videos or just one big video. We will see, but that will be coming in January, obviously. I would love to know from you, how is your reading life going? Answer some of these questions in the comments, please. I'd love to hear some of your answers as well, especially what was a book you really loved that you read, a new favorite, and was there anything that didn't work for you? Those are always fun to hear what some of those titles might be. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you could give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.